As XTC so wisely said, let's begin.
Is that Peter Pumpkinhead?
It's Peter Pumpkinhead, one of the best songs ever written. Hello, this is Ellen Cherry, and across the table from me is
Andrew Grimm.
And you're listening to the Why Aren't You Famous podcast.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm actually pretty good.
Oh, really? Actually?
Actually.
Huh.
Is that the right use of that word, Mr. Grammar Man?
I don't know. Actually, literally. I'm literally good.
I'm literally good.
I'm actually literally good.
I'm actually here. I actually think I might exist.
I'm sure there's a paper somewhere out there on the overuse of the word actually.
Yes.
Because you hear a lot of young people say it.
But there's that award-winning, one of the best movies ever made. Can you sense the sarcasm in my voice?
Yes.
Love, actually.
Oh, love.
I think there's actually like a comma in there. Ooh, I just said the actually word again. Love, comma, actually.
Yeah. Actually, I don't care about any of that stuff.
I know.
You know.
It's a weird movie. There's a whole stalking scene and stuff in it too.
Oh,
yeah, not good.
So how you doing?
Good. We're gonna be vulnerable together today.
Yeah.
Today's about vulnerability.
It's a whole new world.
Exciting things to see. And from way up here, it's crystal clear. I'm in a whole new world with you. I was singing, since you guys weren't here prior to this record button being pressed, I was...
This record button being pressed. On that
on that
newfangled machine
computer.
over there. Yeah, well, I got that me and Bernie. Oh.
I was singing to Grimm the theme song from Aladdin.
Yep.
Because he, surprisingly, doesn't know the words and the melody.
What a shock.
And how amazing a song it is. Such a good song. There's like key changes. There's a great melody. There's
I'm going to say this
rhyme scream.
From a place of love. Rhyme scream, yes. Well, that's what it felt like to me. You sang it well.
Thank you.
And I still don't know the beauty and power of that song because it's junk.
No.
I don't like it.
We're going to watch the movie.
We are not going to watch the movie. You can watch the movie as many times as you like. I'm going
to Clockwork Orange your butt into watching that movie.
I don't want clamps on my butt.
No, not your butt, on your eyeballs.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Anyway, so we're talking about vulnerability. Why can't you be open and vulnerable to experiencing some... You don't even know how it might influence your work.
It won't influence it at all.
You don't know.
It will not influence it at all.
Okay.
I will run rhyme screaming from the room. I just don't like any of this. I don't like musicals. I don't like.
Oh God, why are we friends?
Well, you're talking about that enemy list from episode 2.
Oh, that's right. Maybe I can put you on there.
Yeah, you can put me on there.
Everything is a musical, and that's part of it, is that I think that I'm actually living in one, and that's what makes me happy, because I sit there and sing through everything. I'll sing through. I was singing to myself this morning about getting the coffee grounds out of the sink. I was just like, I'm doing this, and it is great. I mean, it wasn't a good song.
Ellen Cherry, the musical.
I just find that the way
I'm barring starfruit. I'm paying with my credit card.
Yeah, sometimes.
I'm paying up my bills. No compound interest for me.
I think it just makes me feel
I'm picking out a thermos for you.
Oh, really?
Not just any ordinary thermos for you.
I need a thermos. Okay, so today's topic is vulnerability. And I'm being very vulnerable in front of you by expressing to you that the reason my head is so noisy is that because there's a constant stream of tap dancing and musical stuff going on, costumes and just wonderful things. So,
well, and I'm glad. I appreciate your vulnerability.
Yes.
I too have that music going through my life, but it's a soundtrack rather than an interactive song and dance routine that is.
Don't judge. It sounds like you're about to start judging my process, my way of living.
You know what? It's not for me.
You want to have Lou Reed playing on repeat in the back of your mind for everything that you're doing?
How do you know I have Lou Reed on?
I know what's going on in that brain.
Oh, do you? Okay, fair enough.
All right, friend.
Okay, friend.
So I've had a lot of vulnerability. I think emotional vulnerability intensely and acutely for the last couple of months, and definitely for the last 5 years. And I think extreme, I was thinking about this with trauma, all kinds of trauma, physical trauma, existential trauma, emotional trauma, that it can definitely make us feel raw and vulnerable. But I wasn't really even sure that that's what the thing that when we wrote down the word that this is what we're supposed to be talking about. So
Sure.
I just wrote about a time when I didn't even write. I just talked about a time when I felt especially vulnerable. But I'm interested in what your essay is about because
Oh.
I think yours probably is more focused on the topic of fame
Ooh,
and vulnerability.
you know, it might be, it might not be. I'm not sure. I don't remember what I wrote, but
Didn't you do it this morning?
I did. Um, but I think like, well, there are several approaches that I was thinking about with vulnerability, and I mean, I was going to go back to that same old Kesha well.
The deep well of Kesha.
Yeah, boy, you know, somebody killed an animal and threw it down that well a long time ago to spike the water.
Didn't we intersperse the State of the Union on Tuesday watching that together by watching Kesha
Oh yeah,
at
with
the
praying.
Grammys?
Yeah, praying.
I was really disappointed in that performance, primarily
What?
because,
She was so vulnerable.
yeah, speaking of vulnerability, why wasn't Cyndi Lauper singing the whole thing and at the front and just all over that? Because
She's old.
she's not old. How old is she? She's in her 50s.
Oh, Cyndi Lauper? She's in her 60s.
That's not old. It's not old, because I'm getting closer to that age. And
I'm
I was
older
like,
than you.
I know, you're even closer.
I'm okay with being 60, and I'm okay with being 60 and being called old. I don't care.
All right.
I'm not vulnerable in those regards. But I couldn't go back to Kesha because it would just be an old hat. You know, it was just like, okay, you know, whatever. And I thought about like the idea of authenticity, and I saw some stuff last night in New York City that really just kind of like rubbed me the wrong way.
Interesting.
And it was this idea of what vulnerability, like I saw two things last night. I saw three things.
Only three.
Only three.
The rest of the time, your eyes were completely closed. You're
Totally
like, I refuse
eyes
to
wide
look.
shut.
I refuse to look at anything in New York except for these three things.
Well, in terms
is this
of
going to ruin your essay?
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but I'm
Okay.
right now. But like, I saw what I consider to be absolute, stripped down, raw vulnerability.
Okay.
I saw that. I saw vulnerability that was performed like it was an act, like it was like I'm going to prove to you that I'm vulnerable by performing, and I'm going to create these emotions. I'm going to try to convey vulnerability,
Like an actor would.
right, like an
Yeah.
actor. And then I saw an acceptance of vulnerability for one person is not the same for other people.
Okay.
It's like my friend Tom McHugh said. Well, you know, when people are having bad sex, sure they're having bad sex, but it's real to them.
Yeah. I think you've actually used that quote from Tom McHugh
It's
on
a,
this podcast before.
it's a great quote. And it's like, you
Tom
know,
McHugh is obsessed with other people's bad sex, it seems like to me.
I'm not commenting one way or the other. I'm gonna let that go. But that whole idea of like, you know, I watched Bad Vulnerability,
Yeah.
but it was real, I guess,
To that person.
So then because I was gonna write my essay on the way home,
Yeah.
from on the megabus, because I figured, well, I got 3 hours to kill and I'm gonna be awake and I'm not gonna really sleep a whole lot, and I started off thinking about it, and then I thought like, well, who am I to say what vulnerability really is to everybody? I can only kind of say what I guess I think it is, and that's kind of like, well, that's how my essay kind of formed when I got up this morning and started thinking about it.
How you are staying in your own lane on that one. How nice.
Do I normally veer into everybody else's lane?
No, it's just it's a phrase that I've become accustomed to over the last couple of months of like, oh yeah, like the idea that I don't have to celebrate personally what seems like inauthentic vulnerability
Sure.
in somebody else. I don't have to sit there and celebrate it and participate in it, but I can also just say like, I think it's more of like a stepping away from it.
Right.
Like I'm actually going to look for what appeals to me, especially in artistry, that and artistic expression, whether it's painting or dance or music, where the performer is touching on something that can be practiced, but there has to be like this transcendent moment where you're like fully just the Wile E. Coyote thing. Like you are in the air. You have taken that leap. And you're not even sure like what's going to happen. Are you going to fly? Are you going to fall a little bit? Are you going to bounce onto a trampoline? Are you going to do whatever, metaphorically speaking? But that idea that it does take preparation to do that, but you also have to like, I don't know, it's trust, right? You're trusting the audience. And I don't, it's taken me a long time to not judge people for basically what I felt like was inauthentic vulnerability.
Right.
And rather than judge them, I'm just like, I just got to step away from it. I just have to say exactly what you just said.
Right.
That's their experience of it.
Right.
And maybe that's as vulnerable as they can get. Or maybe that's the way that they have to experience it, right? The bad sex, at least, but it's real to them. You know? So.
Or the bad relationship in it, but it's real to them.
Yeah.
Or the miscommunication, or the fact that they, then put themselves in... they get into a marriage and that is loveless, and then they have children that they love but they don't love at the same time, and then they pass that shit on to them. It's like Philip Larkin said, they fuck you up, your mom and your dad. They don't mean to, but they do. And because in their time they were fucked up by people older than they, but they added just a little bit extra for you or whatever it is. I'm paraphrasing some of that, but I think like we talk about
then that's our role then as hopefully like the extra energy that we have because of the choices that you and I have made to disrupt that in our own lives in a way and be freer from it and freer to be vulnerable. Like brave. It takes so much bravery and courage to be truly vulnerable in front of another person, and that's why like I think maybe my essay isn't as bad as I think it is. I'm starting to think about it a little bit more. Yeah. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
Nothing. It doesn't matter.
So you go first. Let's hear yours first.
Okay, sure. I will go first.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! Here we go. Last night I was in New York City to play a show at the Rockwood Music Hall. It was an okay show, but all the time I went up there and came back, I was thinking about vulnerability. I thought about vulnerability when we walked up 27th Street to go to a guitar store. I thought about vulnerability when I ordered a peanut butter and banana cream donut. I thought about vulnerability while I guzzled down my 84th ounce of coffee. I thought about vulnerability while I zipped up my winter coat. I thought about vulnerability when we walked back down 27th Street. I thought about vulnerability when I looked at a homeless man who didn't have shoes. I thought about vulnerability as we wandered around the Strand bookstore. I thought about vulnerability as the smell of books found its way into my mouth and nose. I thought about vulnerability as I thumbed through the end of Lou Reed's biography and I read his final words. I thought about vulnerability as we met an old friend whom long since moved to New York City. I thought about vulnerability while he described the abrupt end of his marriage. I thought about vulnerability as his upper lip struggled to clearly speak. I thought about vulnerability as he talked about hope. I thought about vulnerability as I guzzled my 96th ounce of coffee and zipped up my winter coat. I thought about vulnerability as I shoved a slice of pizza into my mouth. I thought about vulnerability as I stood and watched a young, pretty woman sing her middle school poetry to a large group of pretty young women who looked just like her. I thought about vulnerability as I rolled my eyes at her last song, Fly, where she sings about being free. I thought about vulnerability as I unzipped my winter coat and took the stage. I thought about vulnerability as I reached somewhere deep into the voice of my songs and remembered Lou Reed's last words. I thought about vulnerability as I listened to the people near the stage talk over our set. I thought about vulnerability as I saw my old friend in the corner of the venue. I thought about vulnerability as I zipped up my winter coat and headed for the outside. I thought about vulnerability as I counted the money in the back of an Uber. I thought about vulnerability as I rode the mega bus back to Baltimore. I thought about vulnerability as the cat in the carry-on bag across the aisle cried all the way home. I thought about vulnerability as I said goodbye to Katie Field in the Park and Ride Megabus parking lot. I thought about vulnerability as my cats, Mig and Mouse, greeted me at the door. I thought about vulnerability as I closed my eyes. I thought about vulnerability as I drifted awake this same morning. I thought about vulnerability as I put on Lou Reed's 1992 record, Magic and Loss. I thought about vulnerability as I came to the realization that vulnerability is our essential tragic flaw. A whisper of faith or trust in a vast darkness, a whisper of what makes us singularly human, and which is forever in conflict with all our animal instincts of fight or flight. I thought about vulnerability when I think about Lou Reed's final request. Take me to the light.
Dang, girl. That was like your best one.
Thank you.
It was so good.
Thank you so much.
Ugh. I'm feeling vulnerable. Feeling a deep sense of vulnerability.
Are you? Nah, come on.
I loved the poetry of it. You had told me that you were thinking about changing the style of this one from prose to something a little bit different, and you really effectively did it. It was very good.
Thank you.
It wasn't like William Shatner at all. Shatner. Damn, I fucked that joke up. It wasn't like William Shatner at all.
I didn't kirk out on it.
Yeah. Singing over a jazz band.
Yeah. Rocket band.
Right.
Whose woods these are? I think I know. Spot.
Anyway, don't get distracted.
Yes, I'm not
Be
distracted.
vulnerable.
Be vulnerable. Yeah.
That you really do think it's in opposition to our animal nature?
Absolutely.
Vulnerability?
Absolutely. It's what makes us human. We're the only. I mean, I know that like deer and like hedgehogs and animals can't really communicate their vulnerability.
Neither can your cats.
Neither can my cats. My cats betray their animal instinct because they've never known fear.
Yeah.
And that's the man's interference in animals, or in the natural process of the domestication of animals. I would tend to argue.
You're like so smart and stuff. You're like so smart.
However, I've had some time to think about this. I thought about it a lot in the last 24 hours. But,
Yeah.
But that whole idea of, I mean, what makes us human? Our language. I think the complexity of our language is a mark of humanity. I think our sense of empathy for our own species marks us as different. But vulnerability is we are willingly allowing ourselves to be defenseless in the eyes and in the presence of another human being,
And because of something that we also have, like the brain capacity to dream, to wish, to hope,
right?
To have hopes, like that an animal. I mean, I don't think that there's the idea of hope in an animal when it's just planning for the future. It's just.
I think they always have hope. I hope there's food.
Well, that's not really hope, though. It's not like.
Well, not human hope.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
That's my point. Is that
sure.
we have that special, unique ability to place our hopes and wishes and dreams into our own, capable or incapable hands, and then also to be trusting them with, those plans to be morphed and changed by other members of our species, who also have their own. Some people would say agendas, but hopes and wishes and dreams.
Sure.
And that can be a very vulnerable space. That was a beautiful essay, really, really beautiful. And not just because I know some of the backstory of it, and because you were basically live tweeting at me personally a little bit of it as it was going on, which I appreciate. The idea of thinking about your own vulnerability, especially walking in a place like New York, where I know that I will find company in the statement, and I will also find people who think I'm being contrary. But I find New York to be a very impersonal place. In the structure of the city, although I find generally my experience with the people has always been very, very positive.
Yeah,
Like the
very
people
positive.
there are always very welcoming and
Very warm.
warm in a way that I haven't found in North Carolina or someplace like that. I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like maybe it's island living, that there's
Yeah.
people are just like, we're on this island together.
Yep.
I'm going to make space for you on the street. You're going to make space for me. And there's a sense of like accommodation, but the idea of walking around and being raw and vulnerable in that space is I think that's actually antithetical to that, because there isn't, maybe it's just like the pace of New York to me. It seems like it's very oppressive and busy and moving and so much energy and like distraction moving around, that for me to be vulnerable, I have to have lots and lots of quiet time and space.
Space and quiet. Yeah.
And like it's gotta be 75 degrees,
Right.
and just, I mean, emotionally it has to be 75 degrees, really. And that's not actually true, because I think the most vulnerable that I've ever been has always been in times of extreme stress. Is that
Yeah.
true? No,
Well,
that's not true actually either. No.
One of the things I was thinking about with
I think
my
I have a high capacity for vulnerability and experiencing it in a lot of different ways.
yeah, I would agree with that statement. And as an outside objective observer of your life,
Yeah.
and things that the various epochs I've been witness to.
Yes, and my creative output.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like that was kind of sort of the contrast thing that I was playing around earlier in my thought process. I was thinking about, well, vulnerability is it's a catch-22 type of conundrum, because in order for us to be vulnerable, we have to be brave and strong enough to be vulnerable, and also at vulnerable you are being your weakest at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a paradox.
Yeah.
And that's why I had a hard time with like the middle school poetry girl, because I mean, who am I to say that she didn't have those feelings? That's really great. I'm glad you wrote it out in your journal. Maybe it should stay there. But maybe it shouldn't. Maybe you should go out. It was her first tour, and she's like, it's my first tour, and this is amazing. And then she played over her time limit, and
Ugh.
I was like, oh God, girl, there's somebody else in the room who came here to play, and they're on a schedule, and I can't believe you're doing this.
Yeah.
And your guitar.
Full disclosure, I did play probably five over my set last night. My set time last night.
5 minutes over.
5 minutes over.
5 songs. 5 songs.
Five
over.
songs over.
Sorry.
5 minutes over. But I
God,
did ask the other band
Yeah.
and the venue, and everyone was cool with it. But it was also a different scene. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in a club in Baltimore.
And you knew everybody.
I mean, I didn't know everybody, but like.
But you
there's
knew a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your hometown, and
Yeah.
But
And the people who were following me were not like. They were the ones who were just like, yeah, play, do more, it's cool.
Yeah.
So I had permission.
well, with her and the whole
That's shitty that she did that.
well, and she was front loading all this stuff. So she's like, well, I wrote this song because I was in a place where I felt like I should write it, and I really like playing, and I hope you guys like me playing, and I hope that I can come back and play some more for you. And this is a song I want to play for you that I wrote because I wanted to play it for you. It's like, okay, you told me nothing.
Yeah, why are you saying all that?
And
That's why it's better if we just stick to this as a song about love.
Yeah, and which is almost exactly what I did until I talked about my love affair with a peanut butter and banana cream donut. That went on for quite some time.
You were like,
it was quite filthy.
Speaking of love,
It's like
I would like you guys to know about this passionate, intense affair that I just had literally about an hour and a half ago. This spiritual, sacred, physical experience.
I thought to myself, I was like, oh, you're a filthy donut, aren't you?
Oh, no.
Dirty donut. Oh,
I'm going to eat you.
it is. Somebody asked after the.
I'm going to put you in my mouth.
My mouth. I was talking to somebody like directly after our set, and he said, "Man, you really like that donut." he said, I mean, I was kind of getting worried that it was going to get dirty. I was like, oh, what? Like, because the heat from my fingers was melting the glaze, and my fingers were all sticky then. And he looked at me and he was like, oh. I was like, well, I'm sorry, dude.
It's like, I don't know how you guys do things back in Baltimore, but here in New York, we don't have that. We don't tolerate that kind of talk.
we're not a donut fucker.
have a sense of rules and propriety here in New York City.
That's right. That's right. You can wipe your body down with a piece of pizza. That's fine. But, whatever.
Don't talk about our donuts that way.
Don't talk about donuts. I'm going to start a donut company called Filthy Donut. You filthy donut. I told her
close to the mic.
I said,
was that a filthy donut?
That was filthy. So I did say from the stage that because I was like, yeah, man, that donut shop. I was like, man, you guys are decades ahead of Baltimore. I mean, like, we don't have peanut butter banana cream donuts though. I mean, we have one. I mean, you can get a donut with shards of glass on it. It's totally cool. And then Katie kind of laughed. I said, yeah, it's called the Shards and Nards. That's what you order. You say, I got Shards and Nards, please. I don't even know what Nards are. I guess it's Nads. Made popular by whom? Who made the
Who made Nads famous?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't know this?
Was it somebody very hirsute?
Nope. Well, sort of. 1984, 1985.
Okay. Mark Hamill.
No. Mark Hamill. In 1984, 1985, he wasn't doing anything then.
1984.
Not in the spotlight, at least. He was doing something.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No. Think John Hughes movie.
John Hughes. Oh, Molly Ringwald?
She made Nats.
I feel like she is not doing that.
It was John Bender.
John Bender.
He's talking about how Herman Melville really pumps his nads. Really pumps my nads.
See, when I think of the word nads, I think of, do you know what nads is?
I always thought they were testicles, but...
No, that's gonads.
Oh.
So nads is like apostrophe nads. But nads is actually, I think, from Australia or New Zealand. It's a hair removal product.
Whoa.
Nads. It's like a wax. You wax your
like
legs.
Nair.
Yes, it's like Nair, but it's called nads.
I wouldn't put nads in my hair.
I think. Well, why are you being so uptight?
Why don't you live a little grim?
Yeah, God. I'm going to look up nads right now because I really want to.
You should. I should really switch out of my lane.
For men hair removal cream. Nads natural gel clit. I meant to say kit, not clit. Because I'm not afraid of the word clit.
Oh, no, you're not. You're saying it a lot.
Yeah. All right, shall we listen to mine?
Yes, let's listen to your essay.
Ooh, it's long and rambling. Oh, I wish I'd written a poem. Oh well, too late now. Here we go. In my somewhat limited experience, I find that the moment before you kiss someone is an incredibly vulnerable moment. There's the concern about yourself and the concern about the other person, the anxiety about maybe how your face looks or your skin feels or your breath smells, or if you're angling at the right way. And people experience this moment of anxiety, and then right after the anxiety, as you're leaning in for the kiss, there's that vulnerability, the question of whether anything that you have done up until this moment might be right. Granted, I may be an overthinker in even these moments. I tried thinking about when I've felt that moment of vulnerability, that moment of intimacy on stage, and there have been, over the last 22 years, some pretty intimate moments where I've actually felt so vulnerable in the moment of playing or singing a note or saying a line that I felt transcendent. And the best way that I can describe it is that I felt lifted out of my body by something bigger than myself. And although I've struggled with the idea of God, I think I can possibly see that the idea of God or a higher power or a universality is most present in my life when I'm experiencing true vulnerability through song. One of the most important and most vulnerable times that I've ever had on stage occurred a couple of weeks after this massive traumatic car wreck that I was in 2013. I had returned to Maryland, and I had already had to cancel weeks of shows. I had lost income, and I had lost my spirit. I was medicated heavily. I had surgery on my shoulder. I was in a state of complete confusion that has lasted for years in some form or another. But I didn't want to give up on this show that I had at a club in Baltimore. I had been promoting it, I had been planning on it, and it felt like I was going to lose something essential about myself if I didn't play this show. But I couldn't play guitar. So I asked my friend, Andrew Grimm, who is sitting across the table as we listen to this essay, to play guitar for me. And he quickly learned some of the songs that he may not have known. I think we did a Gillian Welch song. I don't even remember the set, but I do remember the performance. I made it through maybe 3 lines of one of my songs and just completely broke down. But the most amazing thing happened. There were people in the audience at that show who I knew loved me deeply and were so afraid of what had happened to me. And to look into their eyes was just this overwhelmingly powerful moment. And then to look across the stage at my friend, and I remember him saying something to me. I don't remember the exact words, but he said something to me. Words came out of his mouth, and they were reassuring. And even though I was sobbing through each line of so many songs, it was something along the lines of, "You can do this." And I cried. I cried to the point of not being able to sing the songs. And I look back at that moment and I think, I was so vulnerable for that 20 or 30-minute set. I was so raw. I was so naked. But it was so real and visceral and so unsustainable. There's no way that I could possibly experience that type of vulnerability on stage every single time. But to have experienced it one time was so incredibly powerful. And there have been glimpses of that since then when I've had a bad day or I've had some kind of moment while performing where my own words have affected me. And I've let that shine through. But the amount of energy and spirit that it takes to sustain that through an entire show, I sometimes feel that it's too much of myself to give away. And when I think about how it might relate to fame, I don't know. Giving myself away to a small crowd in a club in Baltimore once, with one of my closest friends supporting me on stage, seems like a reasonable amount of vulnerability to show. I just can't imagine sharing that type of kiss with hundreds of thousands of people over and over again and having anything left for myself.
That was good.
Thanks.
That's a really good essay.
Thanks.
Freeformed.
Freeformed.
Don't worry about the pauses.
I know there's a lot of pauses.
That's fine. I think it's the fact that you don't say or anything like that as you freeform it is, it's a solid essay.
Thanks.
It's a personal narrative.
Yeah.
It's talking about. I remember exactly what I said to you.
What did you say?
I said it's okay.
Oh.
And then I said, you have to do this. It's okay. You have to do this. I may have also then muttered, otherwise the fucker wins.
Yeah.
But I don't think I said that part. I kind of said that more for myself, but it's okay. It's okay. There's, and I don't think there was any way that, because I was standing in your way of the stairs on the stage anyhow. So I don't think there's any way for you to get off that stage. But it's like I remember we did the rehearsal. It was the same song.
Yeah.
That we got 3 lines into it, and you started kind of going to pieces, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm gonna witness this for a while, and you just take your time. But the most important thing that you can do for yourself is to do it.
Yeah.
You get on that stage and you sing that song, and I think you're absolutely right about the vulnerability of that moment. It's almost like how could there be any oxygen in this room when that happens? When there is nothing on that stage holding you together except for the clothes that you were wearing.
Yeah.
And the audience, you know, has complete control of what happens next.
Yeah.
And you know you're in a safe space when somebody doesn't say "free bird"
Yeah.
at that moment. Because if that had like, "Hey, wagon wheel," I would have lost my shit. I don't know. I don't think I could be held responsible for what I would do. If that, it would be sort of funny in retrospect. Not even in retrospect. If I think about it now, I'd still be angry.
Yeah, I would have been too.
I mean, that's devastating. That's
Not
like,
even angry. I would have been confused by it. But I think, like, if I was in your position, I would have been like, throw my guitar down and be like, I'm gonna beat the shit out
I
of
would
you.
have gone. I would have gone. Oh yeah, I can't stand that stuff. But it's hard to like, and that's okay. So this is my argument about the vulnerability of like pop stars, and like when Taylor Swift goes out there and sings, look what you made me do.
Yeah.
Right. And this is all about her vulnerability as a woman, but now she's in control of things. But she wants to express that vulnerability, but it's the same show night after night after night, same pre-recorded tracks night after night, same voice going through the pitch correction night after night after night. And it's like, once again, maybe that is how they express their vulnerability.
Yeah.
And maybe because she's like some sort of super ultra star, and she doesn't have, you know, her real relationships are probably very different.
Yeah.
Than what we see.
I hope that. I hope
God.
that for her, because like if they aren't,
right.
Not that I'm sitting around thinking about like if Taylor Swift is okay or not. I don't care. I'm sure she's fine.
She has enough money to buy a therapist.
Yes, full time on staff.
She could have a one-on-one therapist following her around. You kidding?
But like,
she doesn't have to worry about health insurance.
When I hope, yeah, exactly. When I hope, you know, when you hear about that, especially a person her age, and I think about myself at that age, and this age, the age that I'm now, as a sensitive, creative type of person who is frequently bewildered and trying to learn how to be less bewildered,
right,
and confused. It's like, yeah, I hope your personal relationships are a lot different than what you project on as a famous person, because like and also the stuff that you're producing, like that song, Look What You Made Me Do, is not. It has zero self-awareness.
The old Taylor Swift isn't here right now.
It's just like not taking responsibility at all, right. And it's a very immature song. It's written by people who I don't know. It's written in the spirit of like just complete lack of self-awareness, sure. And no self-knowledge, like going backwards. And I was just like, that sucks, because it seems like you have the ability to just be like, I'm going to take 5 years off and go do whatever. Right. Like, just see the world, meet people. But maybe she doesn't want to do that. I don't know. Because digging that deep, like, let's be honest, digging that deep for the two of us involves courage, bravery, but a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of emotional pain to be just like, I want to be in a deeper relationship with somebody. Either your friends or your lovers. Like, it's scary, because you have to, I mean, this is something that I feel like I'm learning, that I've probably always had the ability to do, but I just I've tamped it down. It's just to figure out how to protect myself first so that I can be a better friend, rather than being confused about what it meant to actually be there for other people. And that's good, but I don't even know where I'm going with that. Good luck, Taylor. Good luck to you, Taylor.
I hope you're okay.
I hope you're okay. If you're listening.
I'm really worried about you.
Yeah. Because that song specifically looks like a massive step backwards. But into what? Because like I still feel like, I don't know. I mean, her music isn't for me. We've talked about her before on this podcast, and her music isn't for me. I'm not a 15-year-old girl, so it's like, I don't care.
Fair enough. But the theme from Aladdin is really awesome.
It's awesome. Okay. But you have to think about that type of music that you heard when you were a certain age, and also the ideals that I had for my romantic life at that age. Like, I still think about that, you know? Oh, no,
Meg!
Oh, no.
Damn it.
No. I think we're still recording.
We are.
Meg, no.
Buddy. Asshole. I love that cat, but god damn.
We okay?
Yeah.
Click save.
I'm not gonna click save.
Okay.
I'll click save in a minute.
Okay. Mig.
No, bud, no. Mm-mm. That's right, you don't even know. He doesn't care. He's Mig. What does it matter? He's just trying to get attention. And he got it.
You rewarded him.
I did. I grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and gave him a small toss. Which I don't normally do.
No, I've never seen you do that before.
But he dug a hole in one of the monitor speakers, so it's like
No, you can't be doing that, Mig.
you cannot be doing that. That's
You're going to be a part of the system. You cannot
unless-
be destroying important gear.
unless he's going to come up with $129 to repair. Which, by the way, the JBL HR305s, they're like $99 at Sweetwater.
Really?
Oh my God, they sound awesome. I mean, I love those things.
Sweetwater, we're open to sponsorship.
Yep.
Because we're going to see you in March, and
That's right.
also
We're hanging. And we have to find it. Oh, well, we'll talk about the tour a little. We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
Put a pin in it. We'll come back to it.
Put a pin in it. How very corporate of you to say that.
Yeah, I heard somebody, it was some education thing or whatever. I can't remember who it was, some speaker, and she said, okay, well, let's put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. And I was like, huh, okay. So then I started using it and
You
everything.
can't see me, but I'm like rolling my eyes so hard right now. Oh my God.
Oh, dear.
Oh God. I'm rolling my eyes like
Yeah, she's rolling her eyes all
pretty far back in my head.
pretty far back, all the way back to Arbutus. Yeah, so, but the vulnerability thing, and you think about like those the artists, and I don't know, like maybe Taylor Swift is being vulnerable. Sorry, I'm moving, making sure my cat doesn't jump up on the computer again.
Maybe we should move the table closer to
He's
the
thinking
thing.
about it.
Okay, so I'll talk for a minute.
Yes, you talk for a minute.
I remember seeing Tori Amos when I was in college in Arkansas, and I saw
she's
her.
never vulnerable.
I saw her 3 times. I've seen her 3 times, 2 different tours. And when I saw her for the first time, she sang this.
What tense are you using?
She sang this song that is a very vulnerable piece very intimate piece about a rape called "Me and a Gun," and it's a cappella. And it was just amazing to watch her like do this command performance on the piano and harpsichord and sing her songs. And she was playing solo, and then she just turned to the audience, and it was a pretty like mid-range theater in Memphis, like 2,000 seats, so it felt close. And I just remember like watching her, sort of like the spotlight was in her eyes, so I knew she couldn't see any of us, but she was just like staring into the distance and singing this really deeply personal song about an assault. And then I was just like, I mean, everybody around me was crying. Everyone's like feeling it. We were all with her.
Right.
And then like later in that tour, I saw the same set and her do it exactly the same way. And I started thinking about like, okay, so I don't judge Tori Amos. I guess I'm judging Taylor Swift, but I don't judge Tori Amos for having to like, to put on the artifice of vulnerability, especially for that song, because that song is so intense in a way that like, you and I are never, ever, ever getting back together is not, There's not an emotional intensity to that type of music. And so I can't imagine the performance being anything more than just like a cheerleading display. Whereas like watching Tori Amos do almost exactly the same intense emotional performance with Me and a Gun twice, which I thought the effect of it was going to be, oh, it's fake.
Right.
But I didn't. I felt it both times.
It was
and
just
I
as
thought,
real.
yeah, it was just as real. And I was just like, I mean, I think that's part of like when we started the podcast, we talked about acting.
Yeah.
And really great actors are able to tap into something that, I know that this movie, there's a lot of controversy about the presentation of a racist cop in it. But the 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri, there's a scene in there where Frances McDormand and her ex-husband, who's obviously had been abusive to her in their marriage, they have this scene where he puts her up against a wall with his hand on her throat. And I don't know how they filmed that without it like being super real. I know that they rehearse stuff, and I know that there's a lot of trust between the actors. There has to be, but it just looked so real. And I thought, how the heck did they survive that? How did both of them survive it?
Right.
Because to be the aggressor in that situation, if that's not naturally the way you are, and to act that way, and to be that vulnerable, to touch into something that like isn't you at all, I don't know. I'm always impressed with that, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's why why Star Wars: The Last Jedi sucked so hard. And that's all I gotta say about that.
Take that, you nerf herders. Well,
I was warding people off of it last night.
were you?
Yeah.
The thing with Tori Amos, or the thing with she wrote it. I mean, there's the other aspect is as I look at, like, I'm not saying Taylor Swift didn't write her own stuff, but
She doesn't.
I mean,
She co-writes a lot of
there's
it.
a team of songwriters. There's like, they have this like matrix of songwriters who come in and beep boop 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 bop 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 song, and
The process may be a little bit different than that.
right. I think it's more like beep bop 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 beep bop 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 song.
I don't know the process.
I don't know the process
Although
either.
seeing Jack Antonoff talk about it this summer,
yeah.
I think it was a lot about. Can I just interrupt? Don't lose your thought.
I'll put a pin in it.
Okay, put a pin in that. When he talked about writing specifically this song with Taylor Swift, he talked about them working separately and like texting back and forth and sending messages about it, and then getting together and writing, and then having this communication, which I think is fine. I've done that with co-writers at a distance before, and that's not my process, but it did definitely seem like an introverted person,
Right.
Getting an idea and working on it in a way that didn't seem. I wouldn't have enjoyed the process of that.
Right.
I would want it to be in that room and to have that chemical reaction, that the pheromones of like creative attraction with somebody, that all bleeds into what you produce, and also being open to critique in the moment, and deflecting criticism when it's not necessary. All that stuff that goes into co-writing and producing things together when you trust other people. So
Yeah. No, I agree. And
now pull the pin out.
the pin is out. So then you have it's like a really well written book or a short story or a poem. These are people who are, and not to say that Taylor Swift isn't smart, but when I read a really great book written by a really smart person, it's like, oh, that's really great. Yeah. Like, oh my goodness. Like that wasn't just materialized whole cloth from like, Zeus's brain.
Yeah.
It was like, this is the product of years and years and years of experience and work and reading and paying attention and being there. And then the one thing about empathy I wanted to go back to as well is like, the large sense of like sensing somebody else's vulnerability is the gift of empathy.
Yeah.
And you can only gain empathy by the matchup of imagination and respect. You have to have an imagination, and you have to be able to internalize the concept of respect, both self-respect and respect for the world around you, in order to imagine what it might feel like to have that happen to you.
And that seems completely antithetical to like the capitalistic machine of celebrity and fame.
Unless they can put a sheen on it and sell it.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that intent.
Because you're
thing.
basically like trying to empathize with like a shiny car or a salty potato chip.
A cantaloupe.
Yeah.
But
a nice firm one.
Right. Oh yeah, filthy cantaloupe.
What happens when donut and cantaloupe get together?
Oh yeah, it's a mashup, girl. Mashup.
Ow. I just realized what slippers you're wearing.
It's the only slippers I have. My cat slippers.
So, made from actual cats.
Yeah, made from real cats. Real kittens gave their lives for my slippers.
So that's maybe like my circuitous route to the idea of vulnerability and fame, and not that I like related it too effectively, but just it is decreasing our ability to be empathetic because our worship of fame, the worship of celebrity, and it is because of a lack of actual authentic vulnerability. And in a weird way, celebration of like accidental or non-voluntary vulnerability when we exploit people's pain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, speaking of the State of the Union, which we watched on Tuesday,
mm-hmm.
that whole speech struck me as just anecdotal exploitation of people's deepest
Yeah.
vulnerabilities and for political gain. And it was really like, just, it just seemed like, of course, this is what would happen in the 21st century in American culture.
Right.
This is like gonna be the way that our government is gonna go. This is the way our culture is going, because we are using vulnerability and pain even in this way, in like a sensitive arena where we should be like talking about social good.
Right.
And it's just, we're like, oh well, these people are incredibly vulnerable in front of us, and now they're all going to be able to, like, I don't know. And I would be curious to like the thought process of like, how do you get invited to the State of the Union address and decide that you want your personal pain
Sure.
to be public? And I understand the purpose of it, because like, okay, so speaking of the family whose 2 daughters were killed,
Right.
that he talked about, I can understand them not wanting their daughters' names to leave the news, and wanting to
Right.
keep it being an important story, and trying to push the judicial process through, and maybe actually feeling like this could make a difference, like our daughters' lives are not in vain, the loss of their life is not in vain, because it can actually make change for other people, and that will make it worthy and worthwhile to go through
Right.
this pain. But
But it seems like it's kind of like this semi-revenge. Not the family feels that way, but like this idea of like, well, this is what happened to them, so you know what, we're gonna strike back.
it got, and that's what I mean. It got absolutely perverted.
Right,
Like, we have
without-
no way.
without being a social,
Yeah.
a fix, or a not a fix, but a conversation about how we fix immigration issues, or what's the difference between an immigrant, a refugee, and an MS-13 gang member.
Yeah. And also, how do we mourn? Like, how do we mourn collectively for, like, okay, so speaking of another incredible national tragedy that seemed to have no effect on policy, Sandy Hook.
Oh my goodness,
Like, the way that that should have been
that should have been it.
a national mourning event
No.
that ricocheted and echoed for years. And that, like 9/11, people would talk about Sandy Hook and be vulnerable about that, and think about the idea that this is like that actually happened to one of the most vulnerable populations, our
Yep.
children.
Children.
And not just children, our children.
Right.
Like, all of our children. Like,
Yeah.
those are our kids. And also, I'm not trying to exclude the kids that are suffering in Baltimore City. Those are our children
Yeah.
too. And like that, I don't know, I'm veering off topic, but the idea of not having like losing our capacity to be vulnerable together and mourn that way,
Right.
without it being completely and almost immediately rechanneled into anger and revenge, is something
Right.
that feels like, because I've only lived in the 20th and the 21st century, it feels very modern.
Mm-hmm.
And by modern, I mean like the last 500 years, the last 1,000 years. I
Sure.
don't know, how people dealt with this kind of shit.
Well, we didn't have that kind of shit.
Yeah.
It wasn't there.
Different. It was a different
There's-
kind of human interaction, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you didn't have mass shootings.
Yeah.
You know,
We had war.
we had war. We had we still had rampant racism and social inequalities, absolutely. But but not like in the form of the vulnerability of the Sandy Hook thing. To me, is just it's staggering. And then you have some dipshit like Alex Jones, who then becomes this denier to it, and is like, oh, it's a government setup and all this other stuff. And then people give him airtime to talk about those things, and it's like, dude, a crazy person with an internet web presence has in a lot of ways kind of like distracted everybody from the message.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's maddening.
It's maddening.
It's maddening. They're
So-
like kind of like Mig.
It makes being maddening today.
He is.
So let's start the end of our journey today.
Okay. Well, we have a song
We do have a song.
with you
Since last week we
and
featured
Naked Blue.
Yes, me and Naked Blue.
Yeah, you guys got a pretty good combo.
We do. Several years ago, I wrote a couple of songs with my friends Jen and Scott Smith of the band Naked Blue. This song is featured on their album Weightless, and it was, I think, the second song we wrote together. I just like it because it's currently February 3rd. It's been cold in Baltimore, and I like to listen to the song in the wintertime because it reminds me of one of my favorite seasons, summer. But also just like it's a nice pop song, and I last week we featured one of your songs on June Star upcoming album,
Which
and
was a nice pop song in its own right.
beautiful pop song. Beautiful, driving,
Driving.
and yeah, rocking,
Desperate. Yeah.
desperate.
Sad.
I also feel like
Realistic.
I was trying not to think of this as my only chance to feature our music. I was like, well, I don't want to think like despairingly that if we continue doing this podcast that I'm gonna have missed my chance to be like, that was my one chance to feature my own song on something that I produce. But
Me.
dang it. But I also think this song should be famous because I think it has a wide appeal, and it's well
I'll be
done.
the judge of that.
Okay, that's true. Let's play it.
Here we go.
Give me one kiss, give me one kiss. Give me one kiss, give me sun-kissed hours in your arms. Give me more time, just a little more time. Give me more time, give me more time. I don't wanna hide inside anymore. I waited all year long to hear our favorite Beach Boys song. God only knows that there's no rhyme or reason. You're just a passing season. One day you're here, then you're gone. Give me one word, just a soft word. Give me one word, be my songbird, singing me the song. I'll give you my days, all those long days. I'll give you my days if you promise me you'll stay until the light fades. I waited all year long to hear our favorite Beach Boys song. God only knows that there's no rhyme or reason. You're just a passing season. One day you're here, then you're gone. Drive my car to the sea. Watch you slip away from Give me one kiss, give me one kiss. Give me one kiss, give me sun-kissed. I waited all year long to hear our favorite Beach Boys song. God only knows that there's no rhyme or reason. You're just a passing season. One day you're here. I waited all
right. Well, that was a very good pop song.
Thank you.
Yes. No, I enjoyed it very much.
Have you never heard it before?
I have that record.
Yeah, but you haven't listened to it and studied it.
I didn't study it. I gave it a couple passes, I think, through,
Yeah.
and then I got other stuff I had to listen to. But no, I always liked the record. I mean,
Yeah.
I've always liked Naked Blue and
Yeah.
what Jen and Scott do. Their production values are a little bit different than mine, and it's always interesting to hear what people are doing, and that's not good or bad. It's just different. And
Yeah.
So, and it's almost with any, like, even I'm even gonna go here. I'm gonna go there.
Okay.
You ready for this?
I
You
don't
ready
know
for
if
this?
I'm ready. I'm sitting down, but I don't know if I'm
you
ready.
You better sit down.
Okay.
All right.
Let me stand up
You
and
better-
sit down again.
You know what? You better strap in.
Ooh. Okay.
'Cause- and feel the G's.
Okay.
Even as I watched the middle school girl sing her poetry last night, I was trying to learn something.
Yeah.
And so, even when it's not my cup of tea, not
Yeah.
even when it's not, so when I listen to this song, I'm listening to kind of how the instrumentation goes and how I imagine Scott produced it and
Yep.
and did the
Played a lot of the
engineered-
instruments and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So he's making certain choices.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, I'm always like, how did you make that choice, and how do I learn from that type
Yeah.
of experience, and watching, I don't know, the girl in the third row of math class last night sing about being free because she's flying, and because there's this moment of vulnerability that she had. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not learning anything from her lyrics, but what do I have to learn by her delivery?
Yeah.
What do I should tune my guitar. Got it. What else?
Did she not?
It's so out of tune.
It's the worst.
It was pretty terrible. But like, trying to sing or connect or like, find a space or whatever. And it's like, okay, and whatever. But so this song I really like, and also has that kind of, there's a romanticized kind of sense of the summer song
Yeah.
type of idea. And it reminded me of, and we can kind of roll this into our tour talk too. One of the nicest things anyone has ever said to me about my music was when I was playing at the Moonlight Cafe. It wasn't Moonlight on the Mountain yet.
Yeah.
And with Keith Harrelson.
Yeah.
And I was down there. It was 2004. I was on a solo acoustic tour, and Sugarbird had just come out, or had come out a few months earlier. And as I was getting ready to play, there were these two girls who were sitting in the front row, and there's only like 15 people there or whatever, and I'm playing, and they were like singing every word, every song I was singing, and I was like,
That's so cool when that happens.
I was like, whoa, what? Oh God, I got to remember the words. I was like, I should be singing with some accuracy here. So
Yes.
it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you have those shows where there's not that many people. So it's like, I don't even know if we're going to try. And then like somebody pays attention. You're like, oh, okay. All right.
I gotta do it.
I'm going to be a pro, So, and after the set, they came up and they said, hey, they requested that I play Baltimore, which is like, that was the one and only time anyone has ever requested that song. And I was like, oh, sure, okay, I'll play it. And it's weird playing an solo acoustic, but I did it. And then after the set, they said that song Baltimore, that has been our summer. And I was like, really? It's like, that song is our song. And they were very insistent. And they're like, you want to go out drinking with us? And
Nice.
And I looked at Keith, and Keith's like, oh, and he focused against. He goes, son, you're gonna be fighting a whole lot if you go out with them. he said those girls are pure Birmingham. And I was like, okay. So I declined. I mean, I was dating somebody at the time anyhow, so I was like, I couldn't do that. But I was like, it was just nice to be nominated.
It is just nice to be nominated.
It's nice to be thought of.
It's very nice to be nominated.
So yeah, so when I think about the lyrical, content of that song, of your song "Passing Season," it has all those things kind of going on with it,
Yeah.
and it does that.
It was definitely written as a summer song. Like this is specifically Scott and I both as friends have bonded over our mutual hatred of winter and our mutual love of just like the sun and wanting to be in the sun, spring, summer, late summer, go to the beach, be in the water, be in the sun, just like the best, being warm. And so I think, I don't even, I mean, they can correct me on this about the writing process of it, but it just was fun to write a song that had Beach Boys referenced explicitly, and then to reference Beach Boys lyrics, because I love the Beach Boys. And singing with Jen and Scott, there was, for a couple of years, we performed together some of these songs and did shows together, and we would work on 3-part harmony, and to have that type of vulnerability with people and be open to critique while you're working on something as specific as harmony. It's not like tuning your guitar and hitting the same note every time. You have to be really, like, it's a body thing. You have to study each other and the way that you sing and where you end words. And I love the song for that reason. And also Scott's amazing production on it. And just like the fact that it was supposed to be a summer song. When I remember when we finished this series of songs together, and this one specifically, we pitched it to a music library. And I remember thinking at the time, like, this is it. This is like the hit.
Yeah.
Like, this is the hit that I'm going to follow. We're going to follow. It's Naked Blue featuring Ellen Cherry, but then people are going to know about me, and they're going to delve into my music and like into Naked Blues music, and like that same hopefulness of just like, yeah, this is it. This is the song because it has crossover appeal. It's a pop song, it has a little bit of rock. It could also be a little bit country.
Right.
Like the idea that it's got this sort of universal idea. It's well written. All that. And, I think that song is like 6 or 8 years old now, 6 years old, and
It's a quick ride to the top.
It's not been a ride to fame that I thought it would, but who knows? Maybe this will happen. I don't know. So.
Yeah, they're going to reboot the Twilight series, so maybe that'll be in that.
I refuse. Okay, so let's talk about tour.
Okay, yes, the tour. Yes.
The tour. So we're starting promotions for it.
Yep, we have our posters made. We're starting to tell people about the shows, making Facebook events this week. We have a hole in the schedule in Dallas still on March 13th. It'd be really lovely to play somewhere, so if anyone's listening and they want to put us up. Yep. And we now have a hole in the schedule in Indianapolis as well.
It's not getting filled?
Well, maybe.
Okay.
We're waiting to see. The one guy who was on the bill with us, but this is one of the perils of booking. The venue, I booked it
months
ago.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first things that I got done.
Yeah.
And then I got this email that said, hey, I don't know how it happened, but somebody else double booked it, blah blah blah. And I was like,
So why do we have to get bumped?
Why are we getting bumped? But I'm like, I'm a pro, and I'm not going to ask that because I'm not, whatever. So I was like, your loss.
Okay.
Like, I was going to play an amazing set, but now I will play it elsewhere.
Yes.
And I try not to take it personally. So it's like, okay, well, so the guy who was on the bill with us, Joe Augustin, who plays under the title Achilles Tenderloin.
Really?
Yep.
That's a cool name.
He's kind of like a dobro kind of blues kind of
guy.
Cool. Sort of bluesy, kind of, not exactly blues, but sort of.
Hey, I played with a great trio last night. Geraldine.
That's John Bolton.
John Bolton. Ben Lassiter and a fiddler player named Josh, who I don't know his last name, but they were really good.
That's
super
good.
tight, good songwriting, sounded really good.
Huh.
Nice banter, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Have you met John Bolton before?
I think I have. Yeah. I see him on my Facebook feed a lot.
Yeah.
So
they're in the bluegrass scene in Baltimore, and
is blowing up.
It is. There's bluegrass.
The Charm City Bluegrass Festival.
Yeah. So there's
pretty huge deal.
And it's great. I don't know if I need 8 hours of it. No.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't.
They
gone
should
to one
book
yet.
us in the middle as like a palate cleanser.
You know what? I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't worry.
We should
about
pin all of our hopes on it, though.
We should. You should submit passing season.
Hey, don't you guys think this will fit totally into your
a palate cleanser? We're the saltines of bluegrass. Yeah, well, we are a bunch of white crackers. Hey, zing, zing. So yes, but our GoFundMe page, we're up to $13.75, I think.
Yeah, so
we're doing all right.
I think we're doing okay. If you're interested in supporting this tour, I put up a GoFundMe page last week, and it'll cover the costs of lodging, gasolina, wear and tear on Grimm's car.
Yep. Because we're going to tear that car up.
food, which is usually an expense that comes out of our pockets.
Donuts.
And just like, yeah, the idea being that when you go on tour, remember that we leave our homes, which still have to, it's not like we get a discount for not being in our homes.
Yeah, we still have to pay the bills.
Yeah, so we still have to pay the bills. And also come back with a little bit of earnings too, which would be nice to put into savings for, future things like future food and housing needs. We appreciate all of our supporters. I think there's been like 8 people who've supported it so far, and it's just amazing to like, I'm very, very grateful for the people that have supported. I'm grateful for the people that are going to support in the future, because I know somebody is going to hear this and be like, I got $10, $25.
Right.
We have some cool little presents along the way, like that we tried to make it as easy as on ourselves as we could do from the road. Like, we'll send you a personal podcast. We'll sit there and record something personally for you and send it to you. We will send a digital postcard. We will thank you from the show, put your name on the website as part of our sponsors and stuff like that. So check it out. And I need to post it on the website. So speaking of websites,
yes,
you can find me on the web with a website that badly needs to be updated. ellencherry.com. And I do have a subscription page, and all of my albums except for like 3 are on my Bandcamp page, which is ellencherry.bandcamp.com. What about you?
Ooh. Well, you can find my stuff at junestar.com, junestar.com. And then you can also find my subscription stuff at junestar.bandcamp.com/subscribe. It's $5 a month. You get everything that I've ever put out, minus like one awful first record that nobody should really listen to.
I've listened to it.
You've listened to it, and she can concur. It's terrible.
No, I never said that.
I know. Well, I just thought I would make it up.
I think that we should put up 2 CD players and like play my first album and your first album like at the same time and see what it sounds like in some kind of weird.
Watch both of us like cringe. That's the only way that's the only way you can get me to dance. Like I'd be doing like, oh no, don't look, oh ah, ah.
Oh, those are some sweet moves.
Thank you. So all that stuff's there, and I'm doing 52 public domain songs. So I upload a song a week. Last year I did 52 original songs, and it's also February album writing month. So I will be posting songs. I already have 4 song ideas that I'm going to work through, and hopefully by Tuesday I should be about 5 deep, I think.
Nice.
That's my plan.
Good for you.
Yeah, I got some lyrics working and all. You know, I reached a real vulnerable, lonely place on the megabus ride home, listening to that cat cry across the aisle.
I can imagine.
So I put in some Beth Orton, and I listened to the shit out of her.
Yeah.
So
it's been nice chatting with you.
Thank you.
It's been nice being vulnerable with you.
It's nice being vulnerable with you. And also remind people that our podcasts, this is episode 17.
Yeah.
There are only 7 episodes left for this season of Why Aren't You Famous? And we're starting to think about what we're going to do for the next season.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of kick around some ideas. But the 3 of the last 4 episodes will be on the road.
Yeah.
And then we'll have one wrap-up episode. And we won't be featuring essays anymore.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, I think these are our last 3 weeks of essays.
And I had a thought, too, that I should just put out here for everyone to listen to. At our show, March 24th, which is at the 4-Hour Day Lutheran in Baltimore, which is going to be you, me, and our friend Matt Monta.
Right.
This is the end of that tour, of the Why Aren't You Famous tour, season 1. I was thinking, like, maybe we should do
live
podcast.
Live podcasting.
Right? And like do it the hour before the show. People can show up and like be there for the podcast taping. It might be kind of fun.
Right on.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of interesting idea.
That would be cool. And then we could have Matt Montaugh.
Yeah.
On the podcast.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay.
All right.
Done deal.
Look at us.
So it's actually like 25 episodes.
What? 25? Is that? What are you gonna do?
I guess you could spend a whole day listening to us at that point.
You could.
24 hours.
25 hours. 25 hours, yeah. We added an extra hour in the day. That's how good we are. All right.
Why aren't we famous? I don't know.
I'm too tired to figure it out. So there you go.
All right.
All right. Goodbye, Ellen Cherry.
Goodbye, Andrew Grimm.
Bye-bye.